Hello, Happy New Year. Welcome to Shaquatics Live. I'm your host, David Farkas. Welcome. We got a couple of big topics today. As always, I'm going to talk about some X's and O's, some polo stuff, some of the videos that we've released. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the mental part of the game. But if you have questions, go ahead and ask me at any time, and I will be happy to answer your questions. So, hope everyone had a great new year. I am drinking ginger tea for the new year. That's my New Year's resolution, to mix in some tea with my coffee. So, I'm enjoying that. And supposedly ginger is good for you. So, we'll see how that goes. But this week we released our turns and hooks video number 3. And this is the one where we really started to get in on how to hook and turn your man. Now, remember, if you can learn how to hook and turn your man, this opens up a whole new dimension to your water polo game. And that's why we really took our time with this series. And I think I linked the third one we just released on the trailer of this Shaquatics Live. So you should be able to see that. But you know where our videos are if you need to watch them. But if you're able to hook and turn, it, you're going to be invaluable to your team. So we started the first video series with working on the pivot. And if you're a basketball player, you know how to pivot. And this kind of ties into what we're going to talk about later on how to prevent burnout. I highly recommend that you play other sports, because if you play basketball and you learn how to pivot, it will help you with this pivot when you do your hooks and turns. One of the biggest mistakes I see with kids I teach hooks and turns is when they turn their man, they fall out away from the turn. And you don't want to do that. You want to stay in. And that's where the pivot helps you. When you practice how to pivot, and that's what we did in this step 1 of our series, the hooks and turns part 1. We're on land and we're working pivoting. If you stay in on your pivot, your turn and your hook is going to be much more effective. Your quarter turn, your 180 turn, either one. So the first thing you need to do is work on your pivot and staying in on your man, particularly when you're doing the strong side. That's the one everyone tends to fall away from. So if you're doing your hook and turn, you're falling out of your hook and turn, work on your pivot. Okay. Um, and then the second mistake I see, and the second thing that we need to key in on with our hooks and turns. And again, if you have questions, jump in, ask me a question. Using the off arm correctly. Okay. If I'm let me just see if I can back up here just a little bit. If I'm coming up and in, I got my ball here. If I'm coming up and in to my man, right? If I get my off arm up too high, that's not going to work, because I'm going to catch him around the neck. And when I go into my man, it's probably going to be an offensive foul, right? I want it down here so I get my guy around the midsection. That's where I want to make my contact. Now, if my defender has his hips fully up, then I'm not going to be able to make contact with that off arm. That's okay. There's nothing I can do about that. If he's hand on, fully hips up, arms distance away, I might not be able to hook him. But that's okay. That's a win for me. Because if he's that far away from me, then I can just step out and make my pass. Remember, the whole point, well, not the whole point, but part of the point of doing the hooks and turns is to allow you to pass the ball either 2 meters or to somebody else at any time. To not allow the defender to get up on you, to try to jump around and steal the ball, to push you under and take control of the situation. With the hooks and the turns, you take control of the situation, not the defender. But the end goal is to be able to pass the ball, and to pass the ball at the moment that your teammate needs the ball. So if they're going to play fully hand on, hips up, arms distance away, that's fine. Step out, pass the ball. But if they're going to be all up in your business, leaning on you, making a play for the ball, then they're going to expose their midsection to you. And that's when you use the hook and turn. So you do the same thing every time. no matter what. You go up and in and you jam that forearm in so that if they are dropping their hips, it gets them around the midsection. Again, not up here, down here. That we're going to move them around the midsection. Okay? So you do the same thing every time. Up and in, forearm down, midsection. From there, you read the defense. If their hips are up, then you just step out, travel, and pass. If their hips are down or they're reaching for the ball, that's when you utilize these hooks and turns. And you'll feel them. And that's part of what we talked about on this video. When they reach to try to steal the ball, you'll feel them hit your forearm. And that's when you make your move, right? And that leads me to my next fundamental part of hooking and turns. We want to move the man in the direction that they're already going. We don't want to fight their momentum. Do not fight the defender's momentum. That means if they're jumping this way on me, I'm not going to try to push them back the other way. If they're jumping this way on me, I'm going to hook them this way and move them along the way that they're going. If they're jumping this way on me, I'm going to replace on their lower back and move them along the way that they're going. Right? And we cover this in the video. But if you have questions right now, I'm happy to answer your questions. But you can watch the video and see if that makes sense to you. The underlying principle is don't fight the momentum of the defender. Don't try to move them in the opposite direction. Go with their momentum and make the appropriate hook and turn that makes sense based on where they're going. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you guys. That's really important. And then lastly, you got to hone your instincts. What does that mean? Guys are going to jump on you. You got to know whether you're going to do a strong side or whether you're going to do a reverse turn. And you have to know instantly. So you can't think about it. You just have to make an instinctual decision. And that's where the practice comes in. So we do a drill in the video where you go up and into your man. They start hand on hips up. And then at some point, they try to steal the ball. They jump, anything but right over the head. So behind the head or in front of the head, they try to steal the ball. So if they go right over your head, it's going to be a foul, easy foul. And we're not worried about that right now. So you go up and into your defender. You need a partner for this. And then they jump on you and try to steal the ball. And then you have to make the appropriate hook and turn that makes sense based on what we just talked about using their momentum against them. And you're going to screw it up at first. You're going to make the wrong play. But you're training your body to use your instincts. And you got to do this outside of the game time with a partner. Right? Find a partner that wants to learn how to hook and turn. Go over our hooks and turns video and then do this drill and practice when you have some downtime or during your warm up or whatever. Just, it takes 2 or 3 each one. Up and in, defender jumps, and work on hooking and turn. All right, any questions on that? So we went over the pivot. We went over using the off arm correctly, not getting it up too high and having it ready. And then using your instincts. And I wanted to highlight those 3 things on our hooks and turns. And we have a question from Mike. How you doing, Mike? Good morning. Hi, Coach. How can I stop counterattacks by using hooks and turns? Lee. Hey, Lee. How you doing, Lee? Good to talk to you. Counterattacks by using hooks and turns. I'm not fully understanding the question, Lee. You're not going to stop a counterattack by using a hook and turn. You stop counterattacks using other things. I mean, I suppose if you're able to maintain possession of the ball and the defender's not able to steal it from you, that would stop counterattacks because a lot of the time teams will counter when surprises happen. So if someone gets the ball stolen on the perimeter, that's a surprise, so that could lead to a counterattack. So if you're able to hold the ball and not get it stolen using your hooks and turns, that would help prevent counterattacks. But let's talk about counterattacks for just a second now that you bring up the question. How do we stop counterattacks? So I have a couple thoughts on that. And then Lee, if you want to follow up to that question, go ahead and follow up with me. So let's say you're uh, on offense and you want to try to prevent getting counterattacked the other way. The first thing you need to do is take care of the ball, especially the beginning part of the shot clock. So the reason why last week we talked about the goalie needs to pass the ball up the sides of the pool first and not down the center is because if the ball gets stolen within the first 5, 6, 7 seconds of the shot clock, it's almost inevitable there's going to be a counterattack coming the other way because nobody's ready for that. And that's the main thing you need to prevent is uh, a turnover that surprises everybody. Everybody's swimming down the pool to go on offense. So any turnover that happens while everyone's swimming down the pool is going to be a problem coming back the other way. So early on, especially early on in the shot clock, you want to make sure that you make really safe passes. If you're going to make a risky pass for a high reward play, do it with 5 seconds left on the clock. Everyone knows they got to get back on defense at that point. So that's not a problem. But you make a seriously risky pass within the first 5 seconds when everyone's got their head down, it's got to be an almost certain goal because otherwise you're going to see it coming back. So that's number one. Take care of the ball um, and be patient, especially early in the offense. Okay. And then the second thing I'll say for counterattacks is anticipation. It's huge. So I can show you what I'm talking about there. Got my dry erase board. So let's just give one quick example. So let's say you're this guy at point. Okay. Now if you're the offensive player at point, you're going to be, let's see if that's there. So why is it blurry? Because I have the focus thing on. There, that's clear. Let me lower this down just a little bit so you can see. If you're the guy at point on offense, you're the first guy needs to be back on defense, right? Okay. So let's say, and we're talking about anticipation now. We're talking about preventing a counterattack. Okay, anticipation. What does anticipation mean? Anticipation means knowing or thinking something might happen before it happens. Being ready for something before it happens. Anticipating based on your brain and your knowledge of the game, anticipating that something might happen before it happens. Okay? Here's the example. So you're this guy at point, and this guy has the ball. Okay? And you see this defender is up here, kind of high in the lane. Right? For some reason, this guy lofts the ball towards 2 meters. You know, 9 times out of 10, in this situation with this defender right here, this is going to be a steal. You see it. Ball's in the air. Defender's got a front. You know, almost certainly that's going to be a steal. Do you wait and get back after the steal is made? That's what bad players do. The steal is made, they throw it to the goalie, bob up and down once, and then get back on defense. Meanwhile, 3 seconds has passed. Well, 3 seconds is the difference between a counterattack and no counterattack, right? So when the ball's in the air, you should already be getting back on defense and calling your team back. DDD, get back, right? Worst case scenario, right? The ball doesn't get stolen miraculously. You've started to come back, and then you come back on offense. That's no big deal. But if you don't already start getting back, anticipating the steal, a good defender will take off on you. So I tell players, if you want to prevent the counterattack, you've got to be smart on offense and anticipate the steals Anticipate the play. What if somebody's pump faking the ball and you know they're going to shoot it? If you're on that point or the weak side flat, you're not a part of that play, right? Let's say the five player has the ball. Let's say it's you, Lee, right? You're coming in, you're walking in, right? The guy's dropping back. There's 5, 6 seconds left on the shot clock. You know that they know you're going to shoot it. Should they sit and wait and watch you shoot it, or should they get back on defense? They should get back on defense. Anticipation. Anticipate the shot. Anticipate the steal. Anticipate what's going to happen and get back on defense. You can make yourself into a better swimmer than you are by leaving earlier. That's the advantage. When you're in a swimming race, you can't leave earlier. You get disqualified. In water polo, you can leave earlier. So if I'm a second slower swimmer than the guy that I'm guarding, if I'm smarter, I can make up that second easily by anticipating and playing smart. I could even make up a second and a half, 2 seconds. That's the beauty of playing smart. So I hope that helps answer some questions about counterattacks, anticipation, and smart, patient passes with the ball, especially early in the offense. All right, any other questions anybody has? We talked about turning. You're welcome, Lee. Hope you're doing well. I need to see video of you, Lee, playing. Lee's my lefty, so we'll have to do an episode on lefties. We need to talk about how to be an effective lefty. If there's no other questions on the counterattacks, you can pipe in as I talk about this next topic. This is kind of a big one. We're just going to hit it lightly, but again, if you have questions, go ahead and ask me, and I can take any questions you have when I'm in the middle of it. But we're going to talk about burnout and how to prevent burnout. It's so much easier to prevent burnout before it happens than try to figure out how to fall in love with the sport again after you've already experienced the burnout. So we want to try to get ahead of it. We want to try to get ahead of being of burnout and not ever having to experience it instead of waiting to lose the love for the sport and then trying to get it back. That's way harder. So what are some things we can do while we're playing, while we're still in love with the sport, to make sure that we don't burn out? One of them I already talked about, because we talked about our hooks and turns early on. And I mentioned that if you're a basketball player, you know how to pivot, and that helps you with your hooks and turns because you need to learn, you need to know how to pivot. So one of the ways you can prevent burnout is by playing other sports, and not, especially when you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, not just keying in on one sport, one position. I used to know people, they would start playing baseball or softball, and they were, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they would be um, catchers, and they would be catching for 5 hours every day in practice in that squat position, or their first base, and they're just making that same throw every time. Um, that's a recipe for burnout. You could just see it. So for water polo players, why not mix in some basketball? First of all, it's fun. Second of all, it's not a waste because you're going to learn pivots. You're going to learn what the guys I knew that played basketball were really good at sealing their man, because in basketball you got to seal your man in the post. They're really good at pressure passing because in basketball when you're dribbling, you're putting your off shoulder into your man and you're dribbling. It's the same thing as pressure passing in water polo. So all that practicing is valuable. What about soccer? The the kids that I had in the pool that played soccer were really good at seeing passing angles and making passes to players, because soccer is all about passing angles. And if you can make passing and see the angles with your feet, think how much better you're going to be with your hands. And so my soccer players would make quick decisions with the ball, really good at seeing who's open and seeing how they can feed the ball to them, leading them in just the right way. So soccer, basketball, baseball, my baseball players were really good shooters. Big surprise. So you want to prevent burnout, get interested in a lot of sports and hobbies in general is good. Learn an instrument. Any any hobby you have that you generate joy from, any distraction you have from, let's say you're playing water polo most of your time, but any other distractions you have will help and not allow you, because what you're doing is you're creating balance. That's really what we want. Is we want balance. That's what's going to prevent you from experiencing burnout or losing the love of the sport. Is balance, hobbies, other sports. And then one of the things that happens with burnout, and then I'll answer your question, Deshaun, in just a second. One of the things that happens with burnout is you lose the love of the sport, obviously, but you feel like you're not improving and getting better. So you feel like you're kind of stuck in a rut, and that contributes to you losing the love. So the last thing I would say is continually improve and work on your game. If you don't have a coach that's helping you improve, you got to get online and watch videos. I hate to be self-serving, but our videos are pretty good. Jump on here, ask me questions, figure out what you're going to improve on. An easy one is your off arm. We all can work on our off arm. So take an off season and just work your off arm and get really good at it and see how it can help you in the games. And by improving, that will help you stay in love with the sport, right? When we feel like we're not getting better, or we're stuck in a rut, that can contribute to us not enjoying it as much anymore. All right. So balance, mix in some other sports, hobbies, passions. Find what you're passionate about and have it not just be one thing, and then continually improve. Those are my suggestions to get ahead of any kind of burnout that you might have. It's too fun of a sport to burn out. All right, let's get to Dushan's question. All right. What if someone is able to shoot both hands? Is it possible to use both, switched one to another without ruining the strong side? I have never I've known players that can shoot with their off arm, but it's not equally as strong. So you just use it in certain situations. Um, I usually one arm is stronger than the other. That's just what happens. So what you want to do is you want to develop your off arm, Deshaun, in a way where in certain like let's say I'm left-handed, okay, but my I'm in 2 meters, but my defender is right here on my left, and I got the ball here. Well, I could come here and try to do like a backhand maybe, but what an advantage it would be to be able to just I'm already at 2 meters. I'm not that far away from the goal. What advantage would it be to pick the ball up with my right arm and then just fire it in because I've got my defender pinned on my left shoulder? Or that's one example where you would want a nice off arm to use. The other example is, let's say someone's passing you the ball and they pass it to your other arm. So you just catch it with your off arm, switch it to your good arm, and now you're ready to go. Easy. So you want to be able to do things like that. Quick, simple shots with your off arm, depending on where you have your man pinned, and being able to catch it with your off arm and even pass it with your off arm when you need to. You don't have to shoot as strong with your off arm as you do your good arm. Good. All right. So if there's any other questions, hit me up with your questions. I'll if you didn't see the beginning, we talked about our hooks and turns video. The third one came out this week, so check that out. If you want to help me out and be my favorite person, we got our Don't Make Noise, Lose with Poise. Let's see if it's there. We go. Don't Make Noise, Lose with Poise. We could use reviews on Amazon. So if you're able to read the book, We have a video on it where I'm reading it. And leave us an honest review. We don't want fake reviews, but if you're able to read the book and leave us an honest review, we would appreciate it. That would help us out a lot. And then I'm here every week, every Saturday. We're going to talk polo. We're going to talk some part of the mental game, and then I will answer your questions. Greetings, CWNG. Probably somebody I know, but I can't tell from your name. All right, guys. Happy New Year. We'll see you next week. If you have other questions you think of after I sign off today, just leave me a message on the YouTube page, and I will get to it as soon as I can. Take care and have a great week. Bye, guys.